Hello and welcome to another captaincy video from Fantasy Football Scout ahead of Halloween. Game week 6 was a horror show for many of the popular captaincy picks, but can we do better for game week 7? Joining me to consider the options is David. David, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, surely this time around we're not going to have as rotten a luck as we did in game week 6. I mean, I think anyone who watched the Liverpool game will know that Salah really should have scored in that game. And yeah, 9 times out of 10 when he plays like that, he comes away with a brace.
Yeah.
But on this occasion, he's ruled out for like a centimetre offside, which I think was the right call, but still obviously very tight. And then he hit the post from 6 yards. I mean, that isn't the kind of thing he does on a regular basis.
I know.
So...
I had mixed emotions with that because I had Salah captain. Obviously, I wanted his points there, but the assist would have gone to Alexander-Arnold, who I rather bravely ditched this week. So I would have had mixed emotions there. So I don't know how I feel about that, but yes, I feel unlucky, and I think a lot of people can feel unlucky as well. I guess those who captained Son did well. Those brave, lucky guys and gals who captained Patrick Bamford did very well.
Yeah.
Who would have thought of that? But yeah, for most of us, Man City assets, Salah, Kane, even just an assist there from Kane, wasn't a great week. Let's see if we can do better. Salah and Mane against West Ham. Now, I put this at the top, but I think we're probably going to discuss that it may not be the best fixture for the captaincy. Anyway, fool me once, shame on you, Mo Salah. Fool me twice, I think that could be shame on me. I'm not going to captain him this week. What do you think? Salah, Mane, West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, it's annoying because, normally when you see a guy like Salah do what he did last week, I looked like he should have scored and then didn't. It makes you think, oh, it's fine, I'll just captain him next week. And then, I with you, I don't think it's quite as simple as that. I think fantasy managers sometimes we're quite, we can be quite lazy in that we can look at the badge of the team that the team's going to play next and be like, oh, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of like mentally conditioned to look at West Ham and think, great fixture, because quite rightly so. I mean, I'm not having a go at people for thinking that. It's quite right to do that because West Ham's defence has been quite poor in the last 2 or 3 years. It's been a long time since West Ham have really offered a nice defence. But things change, and I think people have to think about what we've seen with Aston Villa over the last year. We looked at them. The Aston Villa badge was like, an alarm bell ringing, like captain me. But you always have to be testing it against what that team's producing on the pitch, but also in the stats as well, to see if that team is still worth captaining a player against. And I think
while you're talking, I'll just put up for the benefit of the viewers some stats there, which basically in stat form just say what you've just been saying. We're looking at the top 4 defences, the top defences over the last 4 matches. But if you look at the top 4 there, West Ham comfortably the 3rd best. The XG conceded is only 3.7, and the goals conceded only 4.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the thing with this West Ham team, I mean, anyone who watched last week's captain video will remember that we did actually mention this last week as well, didn't we, Joe? That West Ham, of the teams that had played 5 matches, had the best XGC.
Yes.
Which is incredible when you consider that we looked at their run of fixtures at the start of the season and I thought, that's horrible. They're going to get battered every week. And they have had some batterings, but largely the XGC has suggested that either that those moments have been maybe a poor moment of concentration or just a bit of bad luck, maybe a bit of both. I even went as far as to say something like, because someone referenced it in the comments last week, they were like, because I said, I'm not brave enough to say they'll keep a clean sheet against Man City, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did.
Yeah.
And you, of course, quite rightly clarified that I was not brave enough. but it was close. It was close.
Yeah.
I mean, Man City only scored once, and it was, and it just snuck in. It just snuck in the bottom left-hand corner, didn't it, from Phil Foden?
Yeah.
So I was very close to that, to getting that right. But that, for me, that all just sort of sums up the fact that this fixture for Liverpool isn't as nice as it looks on paper. We always have to go deeper than that. But also, the thing is, it's not just about what West Ham looked like. It's a little bit about what Liverpool looked like as well. Now, obviously, they did play very well in the second half against Sheffield United, but there were a number of other factors that kind of played into how everything worked out on the pitch. They were good in the second half, but in the first half, they really struggled with a new formation. They normally play 4-3-3 as we all know, with 3 central midfielders, and then of course the classic front 3 of Salah on the left, Salah on the right, Mane on the left, and Firmino through the middle. and they've done that consistently for ages, and it's not been maybe I think it's been maybe like 18 months since we've really seen
Yeah.
Klopp kind of dabble in 4-2-3-1. And
Well,
at the time, it was good because it would put Salah up front and people wouldn't know what to do with him. But the way that they lined up against Sheffield United was they had Firmino dropped as the number 10. They put Jota on one side, on the right. They put Mane on the left and had Salah up front. And it really kind of... Jota, as much as he's a great player, he's still new and bedding into the system. He was a massive spanner in the works. And he kind of... Him and Alexander-Arnold kept tripping over each other. Not literally, of course, but, just kind of like we're stepping on each other's toes. And so then the supply to Salah kind of got cut off. So it'll be interesting to see how Klopp decides to go into this next game. Because I think he'd put Jota in because he's kind of a little bit short of options in the three central midfield trio. So Jota's got to go in, but he can't be a central midfield player. So I have to play 4-2-3-1. So the Champions League obviously this week will be a helpful tester of maybe what his solutions are. But it's just kind of a few questions there. So when we consider the West Ham defensive dilemma, the fact that Klopp, maybe we're not too sure what lineup he's going to play, and that could have an impact on what we see. Lots of question marks here, which doesn't mean bad captain, but
so there is a change.
Puts me on edge.
I've been reading in the Liverpool Echo as well. I was reading about Liverpool setup. The feeling very much there from the local journalists there is that Liverpool have now options. So it's been Firmino, Salah, Mane. That's it. Origi will come on. That's it. That's your lot. Yeah. That has been their tactics. Now they have Minamino, they have Shaqiri as a backup. They've had him before, but they got Jota as well, who is a serious contender to start, as we saw. So now they have options not only to rest any of those three. So the very small chance that say Salah, Mane will be rested for some of these games heightens because they've got alternatives. But also, as you said, they can play different formations now. They can mix it up, and that's going to be different. It didn't work out this time. They won, but it didn't work out, and it didn't work out for us in terms of Salah doing well. But Mane did okay. Some of the stats I've got up on the screen, these are the last 2 game weeks. And as you can see, things have changed up front for that match, the last match, but things haven't really changed with the same old narrative. Salah shoots less often, but better. No, sorry, Mane, get it the right way around. Yeah. Mane shoots less often, but better, higher quality. And Salah, he just shoots a lot. And some of them go in, some of them don't.
He doesn't care about the quality.
So we can see this is the last 2 game weeks. Salah has had 7 shots inside the box, 5 on target, but just an expected goal involvement of 1.41. Mane's is almost double that in terms of expected goal involvement. The quality of his shots, he's had 5 shots inside the box, 3 on target. Less shots, better shots. That's what you get with Mane.
It's so weird. I think if I was wildcarding right now, I'd be seriously tempted to go Mane over Salah, which people should realise when I'm saying that. That's like, then you should really consider it because I'm like the biggest Salah fanboy there is.
I was so tempted. But I had exactly enough money to get Salah and captain him. So I thought, why not? But you're completely right. Long term, I would go Mane over Salah. I think because in those tough away games, different games,
because people just get kind of turned off by him because he's not Salah. But I mean, just looking at the captain poll on our site, current standings, Salah's neck and neck at the top with Kane. Obviously, we're going to talk about Kane in a minute. But Mane is backed right now by just 0.28%. Now, obviously, we've talked about the West Ham game. That is kind of tough, so maybe that plays into it. But for there to be that much disparity between the two players is absolutely bonkers when we consider that in the first 6 game weeks, Mane, despite taking fewer penalties, has a better minutes per expected goal involvement than Salah. And also again, despite playing fewer minutes than Salah, has a higher XG non-penalty. So, if you had to choose between just one for this weekend, like if I was playing a daily fantasy game and I didn't have to worry about not owning Salah next week, it'd be Mane every time at the moment. Obviously, one Liverpool penalty just changes all that completely because Salah will take them. But Mane is a huge differential right now. If you have the opportunity to get him in and captain him, then there's worse ideas right now, especially in an unpredictable season when you're looking for like a kind of an easy way to just scythe your way through the overall rankings. Mane is a big way to do that.
Well, let's go back to those defensive stats again. So as we can see, West Ham, expected goals conceded, one of the best so far over the last 4 matches. But if you are going to score against a tough side, you are going to want high quality shots. You don't need to shoot all the time, but if you need to get that high quality shot, so as you said, it could be a penalty. that's an easy
True,
one.
Yeah.
There you go, from the spot, in you go, or it's going to be a high quality shot, and that's what we've been talking about, Mane. If I had both and I was minded to captain one, I would captain Mane for this one.
Yeah,
Not
definitely.
Salah, but I'm very happy to own Salah because he said the penalty's there and he shoots a lot. One of them might go in, but anyway, let's move on because, like last week, Liverpool v Spurs. I think the Spurs assets, Son and Kane, are huge contenders for the captaincy. Those that backed them this week to varying degrees did well. But once again, I'm going to keep the defensive stats on here because before we come have a look at Kane and Son. Expected goals conceded. Now, Brighton are just behind, really, West Ham. Expected goals conceded 4.29, but big chances conceded 7. Goals conceded 9. So, there's two ways of looking at that. Brighton have been really, really unlucky. Or, and this is the perspective I have as a Brighton fan, Brighton's defence is a shambles at times, and they are prone to some hideous errors. I thought Dunk being out might have cleared that up slightly, because he is known for a red card, an own goal or 3. But I think that's what's happening here. So I think Kane and Son, for me, appear to be the best bets, and I don't agree that Brighton have been unlucky to concede 9 with that low XG conceded. I just think they've been sloppy. I think they will be continue to be sloppy. Yeah, that's me. I'm going to captain Kane this week, I think. But what do you think?
Well, I think the fact that you're a Brighton fan and you obviously know a lot more about them than most people, and yet you still are like so set on a Spurs asset. I think that sort of tells the whole story. If people want a too long didn't read version. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Spurs players then. On the flip side of that, you cover the defence, and I agree with all of it, so I won't repeat any of that. Let's talk about the players themselves. Son and Kane still just look like really, really informed options, and I think people will be a bit concerned about the Monday night match, which was incredibly dull and not much happened.
For the viewers, I've got the stats up from, this is for the Burnley. Kane and Son stats for Burnley, the Burnley match, game week 6. Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute.
Not a lot of the shots that we saw were particularly high quality. Kane had no shots on target, which I think is the main reason why he got no bonus. I know there was a bit of a furore about that, but if he's had that many shots and none of them were on target, that's a huge killer for his bonus points. But I think we have to kind of view that game largely in isolation, but mainly because I think Mourinho did exactly the same. I mean, the way he was talking about that game building up to the game was he was saying, this is going to be a tough game. I know exactly what Burnley will do. And the game that we saw was exactly what Sean Dyche wanted, exactly what Mourinho expected. And also it's exactly what Mourinho prepared his team for. So, the captaincy article we had last week from Jan, he said that one of his slight concerns about this game was that the way that Spurs had come out of the West Ham game, having not won it, having should have won it, 3-0 up with like 10 minutes to go, that he might take a more conservative approach to a game against Burnley anyway. Regardless of who the next opposition was, he might take a more conservative approach just because he doesn't want to risk losing the game. And then after the game, he then made some comments that kind of reflected that even after the result. He basically said that during the game he had various moments when he could have risked the game to go on and play a more open style to try and cause Burnley more problems, but he didn't want to. So one of the impacts that had on personnel was, of course, is that Reguilon didn't play. Yeah. So he said after the game that didn't want to risk losing the game. It's not just about not bringing Bale on, for example. I thought about on many occasions bringing Reguilon to the game because he's very fast, and as we all know, he's got fantastic delivery, which Kane capitalised on against West Ham. He also said he wanted to bring on Lo Celso to play with Ndombele, but by doing that, he'd have to take off Ben Davies and he'd have to take off Moussa Sissoko. And then he said that when you lose any aerial presence against Burnley, instead of winning, maybe you lose that moment in the box where, as we all saw, Kane was available on the line to make a headed clearance from a Tarkowski's certain goal. Now, obviously, Davies and Sissoko didn't actually make any goal line clearances, but he's left them on the pitch because he needs height against Burnley. Chances are he's probably going to take a much different approach to this game, the Brighton game, than he did away at Burnley versus home against Brighton. I don't think he's going to be quite as concerned about packing everyone into the box a bit more. They haven't got Dunk, for example, so he doesn't have to worry about him as one person to not have to mark corners anymore. And it's
Just
a
have
home
to worry
game.
about an own goal being scored. They can score themselves.
Yeah, true. But I just think his whole approach to this game is going to be completely different, and I think we're going to see anyone who sort of has that annoying feeling of, I saw Spurs blow away West Ham for 80 minutes, and then the second I've signed him or captained him, they played rubbish. I do think we are going to go straight back to what we saw against West Ham, against Brighton, for all the reasons you've just mentioned there, for all the sort of caveats about the Burnley game. And let's not forget that when you just look at the underlying stats for those two players for this season, they're still great. I mean, Kane is still top of the league for big chances created and now has, I think, 8 assists. He's still top of the league for shots on target. And between those two, assists and shots on target, I mean, what more could you ask for? And then with Son, 8 big chances for him so far this season, and that's the joint best in the league. He's created 16 chances of his own, so that's top 3 as well. So Son creates more chances because he takes the corners. Kane creates bigger chances, but it doesn't matter because they're both just creating chances and having shots that are of high quality. So between them, in my opinion, you've got to own them both. You've got to captain at least one of them, and I think you're set.
Yeah, and just coming back to those stats from the Burnley match. So yeah, as you've described it perfectly what happened in that game, and that was not a good game for attacking assets. Yet both of them got attacking.
Yeah, exactly.
But
if they can do it there, then great.
And you look at that, Kane 4 goal attempts, 3 inside the box, only 1 long range. Son 2 goal attempts, 2 shots in the box. Obviously, he scored with one of them. There you go. So that's a bad match, and I would look at those stats at the end of a match, and if I owned either of those players, I go, nice one, that's fine. What you don't want is 0-0 or 1-1 or something like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's depending on team news towards the end of the week. I'm set on Kane, and I think Son is a very good option too. Man City. I don't know what to do with Man City. So, what they need is a striker. They keep getting injured. As soon as you think one's back, they're gone again. So we think, Aguero's out for at least a couple of weeks, we think?
Yeah, 10 to 15 days minimum is what Guardiola said yesterday, but he said that it could go up to 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe even a month. So, yeah, I wouldn't count on him being around for a little while.
Okay,
but Jesus is about a week to 10 days away.
So they're away to Sheffield United. Sheffield United's defence, as we know, is not been so good this season. On paper, it's a good setup. But who plays up front? It's unlikely to be Jesus, although you never know with Pep. It's unlikely to be Aguero, although you never know. It's probably going to be Mahrez or Sterling. And that means that Foden could be an option. The stats I put up on the screen really show that so far this season, this is the last 4 game weeks. Yeah, Sterling's been the man, and it's not as good as some of the stats we've been reeling out with the likes of Salah, Mane, Kane and Son. But nevertheless, Sterling is the man. He scored 2 goals, 11 goal attempts. Mahrez 13 goal attempts, and he's created 8 chances. And so looking at that, and shots on target from Mahrez as well is 5. So I think Mahrez is arguably, the stats say, due. But I think it would be a brave FPL manager to bet on him for the captaincy over, say, Kane, Son, Salah or Mane. But Sterling has been no slouch, really. Yeah, 6 chances created, 2 goals, 11 goal attempts, and he's highest for expected goals over the last 4 game weeks. And we can see De Bruyne there with 8 goal attempts, 9 chances created. Not too shabby either. They're ticking along. But without a striker, what's your take on it? Because you've been writing about it for the last couple of weeks. The strikerless City.
Yeah, it's not as good. I think it's not just about the fact that they don't have a striker. It's the fact that who then has to fill that slot then detracts in other areas. So obviously you want something to aim at, and Aguero and Jesus provide that perfectly. Sterling not being on one of the flanks means that they're not as they're not as penetrating in those areas either. So then the service to him is then detracted by the fact that he can't provide it by making those runs. So all of those things together just make City not as devastating as they can be. De Bruyne being back will obviously help, but still Foden and Mahrez on the wings I think is I'd rather have Sterling and one of the others rather than both of them having to feed him. So, and let's not forget Sheffield United are a big team. They're a big physical team. And I think that before we know, he'll squirm through and score a hat trick. Now I've said that, but, you can't predict with any degree of strong confidence that Man City are going to blow this game away. I mean, go back to what we said about West Ham. Anyone who sort of like naively looked at West Ham on paper and said, right, that's a game that Man City will absolutely rip to shreds. They didn't. They drew 1-1. And and to be honest, we all said it about Liverpool, didn't we? We said, look, Liverpool probably going to go through Sheffield United, and they didn't. And that's who Man City had to play now. So with all the sort of situations that we would view as not ideal for Man City, it has to be a no, doesn't it? When you compare them with when you compare it with the Spurs options.
Yeah, and they've got Liverpool up soon coming up. So Man City assets. It's never a good time to jump off Man City, but the next two could be the time to jump off and then back on again, because then you're going to want them again. So if you're feeling flush with your transfers. And you're thinking in terms of the captaincy, really, because if you're spending, say, 11.5 million or so on Sterling, you're spending a lot on De Bruyne, then arguably that money could be spent elsewhere with the captaincy. So looking at the rest of the fixtures, seeing if there's any notable other captaincy picks for the Mavericks out there, those that quite rightly perhaps might be thinking that Salah won't score, and perhaps Spurs may not do so well against Brighton. But yeah, any others? We thought Patrick Bamford perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Bamford's a good shout. I mean, I thought he was great against Villa. I mean, I think also considering it was Villa, he had defended so well so far this season up until then, and then Bamford absolutely had his way with them. That was impressive, and I think we definitely need to be taking him seriously. I didn't really take him seriously at the start of the season. I kind of thought maybe he's a bit of a the new Pookie, but I think he can't because
posh,
the stats he's posting are great.
It's because he appears intelligent and posh,
maybe,
and it throws us for a footballer.
Too nice.
Yeah,
he's not nasty enough.
Yeah,
but I mean, scoring hat tricks, pretty nasty, especially when everybody has an Aston Villa defender. So yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think the Leicester game isn't. I'm probably going to get Bamford at some point, or rather I should say get back, because he was, of course, famously in my first draft, which I always keep reminding myself of. But I think with the Leicester game, it's not necessarily the ideal time to get him. I never really know what I'm going to get with Leicester, but they are still capable of keeping a clean sheet away at Arsenal. So I think they're capable of keeping a clean sheet away at Leeds, potentially, or keeping it tight. I think if we're looking for someone to be a Maverick choice, I think maybe Everton could be a team to turn to. And I say that probably wasn't a Maverick choice 2 game weeks ago, but one bad performance against Southampton, and all of a sudden they're probably a Maverick choice again. But mainly just because Calvert-Lewin is still up there with some really nice stats. 17 shots in the box this season, which is top 5 among all players. 8 big chances, which is the best. 12 shots on target, which is the second best. And Newcastle defence, hasn't really been particularly good this season. I think they're always capable of, getting defeated quite considerably. Quite considerably. I mean, you look at their XGC for the season; it's 9.24, which is the 4th worst in the league. So, I'd be surprised if Everton didn't win that. And so then, if Everton are going to go win it, then the chances of Calvert-Lewin being involved in a goal are pretty high. So, I think that's worth considering. The only other thing I just want to sort of add on in terms of, it's not really about the captaincy conversation for this week. It's probably more relevant for next week. Maybe relevant perhaps for anyone who's still holding Mitrovic, thinking, all right, West Brom next. That's an easy point. We always want to try and stay on top of whipping boys, and we've kind of already talked about this theme with the West Ham defence. It's quite easy to just go and look at the defensive stats for the whole season and see that West Brom are comfortably bottom of pretty much every stat defensively. And summed all up by the fact that their XGC is the worst in the league so far, 11.66. But since they made a shift from a back 5 to a back 4 and signed, the legendary, cult favourite that is Branislav Ivanovic, they have looked a lot more assured at the back. And obviously the fixtures they've played in the time they've played those 2 games with the back 4 have been against Burnley and against Brighton. But it's kind of just makes the point that they're not the kind of team that's going to get rolled over by absolutely everybody. We have the defensive numbers that Ivanovic is contributing to this back 4. I know he was obviously responsible for the own goal last night, but I think that's a bit of a freak of nature. We can't expect that to happen again. He's managing he's winning an aerial duel every 45 minutes, which is the best of any centre-back at West Brom this year. He's winning the tackle every 45 minutes, which is the best of any centre-back who's played in the last 2 game weeks for them. And he's getting a clearance block and interception every 16.4 minutes, which is basically as frequent as their centre-backs were managing to achieve in games when they were conceding more shots. So they're now conceding fewer shots, and he's still performing really well for clearances, blocks, and interceptions. So he's making a big impact there. So, basically, if you're thinking about Maverick captain, let's go Mitrovic. Absolutely disastrous decision because West Brom are looking much, much better. But the reason why it's also relevant is, of course, West Brom play Spurs next week. So it's worth kind of just getting ahead of the game on this. And I think people should watch that Fulham v West Brom game very closely before sort of booking in.
Yeah.
Spurs definitely going to captain their players next week because things change. Managers make changes all the time. And it's really, really important to stay on top of what those changes are, what those changes mean for back fours and defences, because that's a massive, massive part of how we pick our captain. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, a little insight into next week's captaincy video as well. I mean, just as you're talking there, looking at the last 2 matches as well, and you can see, we used to see West Brom at the foot of the table. But in terms of big chances conceded over the last 2 matches, it's not West Brom there. It's Fulham. It's Sheffield United with 7. And then Arsenal with 5. Everton, Liverpool, West Ham, Leeds 4. And then Villa, West Brom and Newcastle down there following them. So West Brom are now mid-table. I don't know what the term is for a mid-table whipping boy, but maybe I've just coined it. They're a mid-table whipping boy no more.
Yeah, I mean, they might be a team that can get turned over by a big team all the time, but I think the fact that they're capable of putting in those performances with those changes shows that you can't just look at a badge every week and be like, I'm captain and that guy, because things change. And I think if you want any more data on it, if people want a bit more information, then we've got an article on the site this morning just highlighting the massive, massive change in expected goals conceded between the first 4 matches and the 2 most recent.
I'm looking at that now, and I'm not going to reveal it because I want people to read that article. But I'm looking at expected goals conceded last 2 matches, and I'm looking where West Brom are in that. And read on, read on, dear reader, read on to find out more. And just before we go, just want to put a little picture up and some more stats, just a couple more stats before we go. This is expected goal involvement so far. Just having a look to see where we're at really. Salah, Kane, top. But then you're starting to see the likes of Zaha, so the old talisman theory coming out there. Mbappé as well. So these are teams which you wouldn't necessarily consider for the captaincy, but you might perhaps in a week where you're not happy with some of the heavy hitters, the likes of Zaha, Mbappé, Cam Wilson as well, and of course we mentioned Calvert-Lewin. These are the sort of guys that are doing well on expected goal involvement. And what does goal involvement equal? Points. And what do points equal? Well, mild amusement for an FPL manager.
Yeah, 1 or 2 prizes, not very many.
1 or 2 prizes.
Pride.
But yeah, as we said, loads and loads of member stats here, and loads more in the articles. And you've given a good plug for that one coming up about West Brom. Not often we get excited about West Brom, but they're getting exciting again.
Well, it's Ivanovic coming back. I mean, it's the fanboy within me wants him to be a good option. I mean, he's up there for corners as well, so you never know. A couple of weeks' time, we could be looking at signing Ivanovic, but watch this space.
Indeed, but for now, good luck with your captaincy decision, and good luck with the rest of the game week.
Cheers, and the same to you as well, Joe.